Good morning, David. How you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Not bad. I was in Connecticut for a while, visiting family until just yesterday.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Where in
it's a little
Connecticut?
colder. It's are you familiar with like Middlebury?
Yeah, I know where
It's
Middlebury
further.
is.
Yeah, it's close. Yeah. My family lives up there and Oxford. I got two sisters, so but yeah, it was good. It's a little
Nice.
bit colder up there than down here.
Sure.
It's like yeah, 5, 10 degrees difference, but it's okay.
True.
Yeah.
Oh,
How you
good.
doing?
Doing great.
That's
Feeling
good.
good after all the events of last week. So yeah, it's great. Ready to get back to work.
Ready to get back to work. It's right. Yeah,
I mean, I shouldn't say get back to work. I should say get back to the routine.
that is true. Oh, that reminds me. On the way back, I stopped for lunch in Stanford. One of the restaurants I really like is there's a Mexican restaurant downtown called La Casa de Villa, but it's a good one.
Good. You know, Stanford has some pretty good restaurants. For a small city, there's actually pretty good variety and new ones are coming online. So it's
Mm.
nice. Obviously, it's been a little tough in Corona time, but everybody's been experiencing that. But yeah, you know, my folks just moved in with me, and so we're introducing them to some of the places. And so you kind of think fresh about, you know, what you have around you when you're introducing somebody else to the area.
Yeah, that's true. Now, there's a few places that I actually really like in terms of like I think of those places where I'm like, oh, I wish that type of Indian food was here or that type of Thai. Like Bedford Thai, I really like them.
Yeah,
Um, and I really like oh man, there's two Indian places down there that are really good. But yeah.
there's one that we often go to called Chutney,
Yeah, I
which
go
is
to
right
Chetney.
downtown. Really good place. The guy who owns it's a
Mhm.
good guy, and
Yeah.
yeah, we love that place.
Yeah, their chicken tikka masala is on point, and it's funny because he'll be like, I'll be like, I want spicy, and he's like, well, how spicy? I'm like, spicy, and it's super spicy, but
Yeah,
it's it's really good. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
My wife likes the spicy stuff too. Same thing. He'll make it hot if you ask for it.
I remember the first time I was like, what's spicy? He's like, oh, you want Indian spicy? I was like, yeah, I want Indian spicy. So, and it was good.
You know, there's a restaurant where my wife comes from in Japan. My wife's Japanese, and
Yeah.
in that area, it's kind of an old coal mining area, and they have like volcanoes right behind her house is a volcano, and it's asleep fortunately, and has been for 500 years. But
Mhm.
they have this one restaurant there that's a curry restaurant, and they have 14 levels of heat, and the
Yeah.
14th level is like volcano. And you know, she says, and she likes spicy stuff. She said she's never gotten past level 3. And I did one,
Wow.
and that was it for me. I mean, I had one dish of one, and I was done. I'm not super spicy. I can do like moderate, but man, there are places out there that are just crazy.
I know that's saying something. 14 levels and your wife is like three's about it. It's like, oh,
No
how spicy
kidding.
is that?
No kidding. Well, good morning, everybody. Let's get started. David Severance here. Delight to be back with everybody. Um, just want to say a word or two about last week. Thanks for everyone who was able to make it to the activities of last week. It was so great to meet so many of you face to face. Looking forward to seeing you again next time we do that. For those of you who couldn't make it, we hope you'll be able to join us next time around. We're thinking of doing something again in the first quarter, perhaps, of next year, so not too far away. So if you couldn't make it last week, we really would love to see you live next time we get together. I hope everyone who attended both the event itself as well as all the surrounding activities felt like they got a lot of value in terms of the learning and networking and connecting with Compass people and other agents and everyone on our team and all of that. And feel free to give us any feedback. We want to make everything that we do for you as useful as possible to you and your business. So thanks for being with us this morning, everybody. For those of you who are new here, my name is David Severance. I'm one of the coaches at Chirag Shah Coaching, and I'm the Chief Learning Officer here, which is a bigger sounding title than it really is. But I'm here every Thursday and talking about things that can help you make your business succeed that perhaps are a little bit beyond the typical, what's the script for this objection, or how do I handle this particular specific thing in my CRM, something like that. Today is the last day of September. We're just about to enter the final quarter of the year. And so we're looking this week, looking today specifically on how do you finish strong? One of the ways that we see businesses succeed, and Chirag was talking about this the other day, is this idea of the infinite game, continually getting better over time so that you can leverage and extract more value out of your business for your clients, for yourselves, for your employees, all of that. And one way we do that is to not let our good intentions and our good habits or actions tail off over time. You've probably experienced what we do in this country anyway, and some other countries. In January, we have these things called New Year's resolutions. And many of us make promises to ourselves that I'm going to do this going forward. I'm going to hit the gym every day, or I'm going to change my diet, or I'm going to read a book every week, or whatever it is. But the research shows that 80% of the people who make a January 1st resolution have abandoned it by February 1st. That's a big number. And just imagine what happens to the results in those people's lives when they set an intention to do something which will require some repeated action or something down the line. And then they end up not doing it. Of course, whatever the potential positive impact is never gets realized. And this is what we see in so many businesses as well. People start a new year and they're like fresh start and ready to go, and they have some good plans and goals and all that stuff. And by the end of the year, it's long out the window. And so it's a great chance right now to just check with yourself and say, where am I? Have I thought about the goals that I set for myself early in the year? Am I monitoring anything that's happening there? Am I moving forward at all or not? If you were with us at the end of last year, you went through the business planning process that we did in December, which was a huge document, 16, 17 pages, a whole lot of information about your business, what you wanted to focus on, how you wanted to get there, that kind of thing. How many people were present at that time and remember doing that work? Just raise your hand. Okay, some of you. Doesn't matter if you weren't there at the time. We're going to do something like that later again this year to set everybody up for next year. My question for you is, are all of you on track with all that you did at the end of last year? Whether you did some planning here or you're doing it on your own or with somebody else, do you feel like you're on track based on where you thought you would be at this particular time? And if not, what's going on there? Is it that the marketplace changed? Is it that you think differently about your business? Is it that you've kind of lost track on some of that stuff and you've kind of allowed yourself to become distracted by something else? There are many reasons why we might not follow through on original intentions. And being able to kind of finish strong and stick with what it is that you think is important for you to be doing or focusing on is both psychological and tactical. The psychological part of it is that, unfortunately, our brain is basically wired for the present rather than the future. When they do studies of children and they say to them, would you like to eat one cookie now, or would you like to wait for an hour and get 2 cookies? Little kids will always choose the 1 cookie now. It's just they're wired for the 1 cookie now rather than waiting and being able to, persevere and get the reward down the road. And we know from motivation studies that people will not do things generally unless there's an immediate benefit, and the benefit is certain. If you were with me a few weeks ago, we did a program on motivation, and one of the things we talked about then was this idea of immediacy and certainty. They look at things like, why do people smoke when we know that you can get lung cancer? Or why do people not wear seatbelts when they're riding in cars when you know you could die? Why would people choose to do that in a logical sense? What they find is that when people realize that the consequence of that particular choice is not immediate and it's not certain, people are much less likely to do it. So for example, if you smoke 1 cigarette today, you're not likely to get cancer today. And you might not get cancer at all. Even if you smoked a lot of people don't get cancer. And so there's no immediacy and there's no certainty. If you knew 100% guaranteed that you're going to make one more call and that was going to result in a sale, it'd be easy to make the call. But the reason that we don't end up calling people is we don't know whether this next call that we make is going to result in anything. And even if we do, it probably won't be immediate. We might have to develop a relationship with that person over months and months' time, and who knows, right? So many reasons why we're kind of geared against doing something that we know might be useful to us. So a couple of questions for you, and then I'll share a couple of slides. First of all, please put down in the chat box, or a couple of people come off mute. What is something you would like to be able to stick through to the end with, but that you struggle with sticking through on? What is that in your business? Let's have somebody come off mute. What's one thing that you wish you were better at sticking through with, sticking to the end with in your business?
Following through after the closing.
Following through after the closing. Got it. Got it. Wrapped it all up. Pat yourself on the back. Next client, your attention goes somewhere else, right? Got it. Thank you. Who else? What's something you think you wish you could be better at sticking through on?
For me, it's time blocking.
Time blocking. Absolutely. Thank you, Ernie. Marlena, I saw your hand up.
Yes, for me, it's really being consistent. I think about that all the time, and I don't do it like the consistent 5 calls a day, 5 notes. And I just made a challenge with myself for the next 30 days, starting today, to do it. And I'm really praying that I can continue.
Got it. Thank you. Obviously, one of the tactics is to lower the bar for the commitment, right? Instead of committing to something for the next 360 days, let's say, 365 days, let's commit to 30 days, right? That's something easier than another way. But even then, it's of course difficult. Who else? What's one more thing that you struggle with sticking through on that hasn't been mentioned yet?
For me, oh, okay, no, for me would be the same thing, the 5 calls and
Got it.
talking. Consistent.
All right. Got it. You know, 5 calls a day is 25 calls a week. That's 100 calls a month. That's 1,200 calls a year. And at a 1% conversion rate, how many more sales is that? A lot. Thousands of dollars on the table. Marlena, something else to add?
Yes, I just want to add that last week at some point I forced myself to do, actually it was 9/14, and I saw likely to sell somebody I hadn't talked to in about 10 years. And instead of writing to them, I called and I left a message and nothing happened. And then he called me yesterday. He's like, that was the best call I got all year. And lo and behold, he said, I'm planning to sell in 2 months and we're getting together next week. And he wants to come back to the Upper West Side. And there you go. He wasn't on my radar. So it really, that got me all jazzed up to the 30 days. So I just wanted to put that out.
Yay,
For you.
Marlene.
Congratulations. You know what? You never know, right? If you don't put something out there, you never know what the universe will give you back. So here's the most important question for this morning. What is it that you believe prevents you from following through in the way that you need and want? What is the barrier for you?
Focus.
Focus. Okay, so you're scattered all over the place and some of the important things need to get done, but they don't because you're looking somewhere else. Thank you, Luciana. Who else? Rejection, Marlena. Sure, another good one. Who else? What gets in your way? What do you think is at the heart of what makes it difficult for you personally?
Everyone needing just one little thing.
Related to, oh, sorry.
Sorry,
Can
Allie.
you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead, Will. Can you just say that again, Will? And then we'll hear from Allie.
Thank you, Allie and David. For me, it's everyone needing just one thing. And, you know, it's just a small thing that's needed. And then when it's added, you know, by many people, it just becomes, my whole day just becomes servicing people, which is okay. But it often distracts me from being able to really have consistency in my schedule and in my life because I support, you know, other people. And Allie, you go.
Got it. Thank you. Go ahead, Allie.
Mine is that if I don't have the entire plan in place, I won't do anything. Like it's all or nothing. It's not, something is better than nothing is like something I believe in, and yet I will do all or nothing.
Yep, got it. So you might want to remember what one of our coaches, Haneen, often says, and that is done beats perfect. Very often we think we need the whole thing in place before we take the first step. And there's nothing wrong with that logically. Tactically or logistically, sometimes that can work against us because it causes us to hesitate. All right, so what I heard was focus, rejection, one more thing, one more thing, one more thing, adding up to a whole lot of things, and having that kind of all or nothing attitude. Pick one of those that you think applies to you and start thinking about that. It's important for us to recognize what it is in our thinking that's getting in the way of what it is we know will help our business. You know, any one of these things can get in the way. The funny thing is that we all want to succeed, and we come here every day saying, I want my business to be a wild, roaring success. And yet here we are, our own mind is preventing us from succeeding in the way that we want, or having the success we want to experience. That's why I say in all of my work with my clients, everything that we do gets processed through these 3 pounds of gray matter in our head called our brain. Everything we see around us, everything we experience around us, everything we interpret around us, and most importantly, how we respond to what that is what determines the success in our business. And this is why the psychological side of your business is so incredibly crucial. It's not just tactical, it's psychological. So give some thought to whether one of these 4 things that was mentioned, focus, rejection, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 1,000, or all or nothing thinking, or perhaps something else is what's preventing you from being effective. I'm also going to share the tactical side. There's 8 things that I'll share here in just a minute. And I wonder if any of these are ones that perhaps you haven't leveraged enough, or you think if you leveraged a little bit more or a little bit differently, might help you get over that particular barrier. But you should recognize that any tactical thing that we do is not necessarily a full solution. In some cases, it's just a Band-Aid that'll just kind of keep you in the game, and you still need to fix what's in your mind. Because if this gap that's in your mind, or this barrier that's in your mind, is still there, it's always going to be there until you do something about that itself. It's not just about having a workaround or a good tactical response, right? And so part of the work is to recognize, what is this that's in my thinking that's hurting me? And the all or nothing one that Ali brought up is a perfect example. If I feel like I need to have all my ducks in a row before I take that first step, my business will never reach its potential. I have to be comfortable with taking a little bit of risk. And everybody knows that leadership, whether you're a single person or you're leading a team, risk is part of leadership, and managing risk is part of being successful. And so what I try to support people to do is become what I call fearless leaders. That is it's not being a leader and having no fear, it's being able to act in spite of your fears. And this directly goes to what Ali's talking about. There's nothing unnatural about having a fear if I don't have everything organized before I start. On the other hand, it helps me to develop some degree of comfort or willingness to take that step, even though I don't have that perfect certainty. Okay, so let me pull up a deck here, and we'll talk about a couple of things that you can do. You've probably done a number of these things, but maybe there's one in here that you haven't thought of so much that might be able to be useful for you. Okay, oops, let me go back. Why is that not coming up? Come on. Okay, there we go. Okay. 4 strategies on this page to help you think about how to stick with it, or to just stay in the game when something is working against you. First, track your metrics. Do you track metrics? Do you really track it? Chirag was talking about this earlier in the week, and what we were hearing was a lot of people don't know their numbers. We talked about this last Thursday as well. Most people don't know the numbers of their own business. And I talked about it a few weeks ago as well, having a simple quarterly kind of tracking sheet that you can use. That's a simple Excel sheet. If you remember that session I did, or you can look it up, everything's available. For those of you who are new, all of our previous sessions are available to you, so look them up. Are you tracking metrics? One good reason to track metrics is to recognize that you're moving forward. And for many of us to see the progress, to say, you know what, I did call 5 people, and I have done that every day for the last 6 weeks. Wow, I've made a lot of calls. I'm on my way to success. So progress can fuel effort. But the opposite is also true. Sometimes when we see a lack of progress, that can be like the kick in the pants that we sometimes need. Like 6 months have gone by, and I said I was going to make 600 calls by now, and I've made 11. And you got to ask yourself in that case, am I really serious about this or not? Right? There's a big difference between what I wish I could be doing and what I'm committed to doing to serving my business. And one way to give yourself that kick in the pants, or to give yourself a pat on the back and the energy to keep going, is to track metrics. 2, find ways to experiment. When you have to do the same thing over and over again, this is one of the things that makes it difficult to stick through. It's hard to do. And so there's many different ways to experiment. For example, you just have to be creative. One of my clients, I met her for the first time on a park bench. This is before COVID. I met her on a park bench in Rye in Westchester County, a little bit north of New York. And we decided at that time it was kind of nice to meet that way. And so on every nice day that we had a park bench somewhere within some reasonable distance of both of us to meet. And so we went to various parks, we went to beaches, we went to other places. We even met one time in a cemetery. There was a nice bench in the middle of a cemetery at a church. Interesting spot, middle of the summer, under some trees, weird and different, but talk about variety. And so you may say, well, how can a coach work with, X clients a day, day after day after day, month after month for a year? Well, a simple way to experiment is to find some variety. I always say to my kids, variety is the spice of life. They're so sick of hearing it, but it's really true. Think of an opportunity that you have to do the same thing in a different way. I guarantee you it'll seem a little fresh for you. And if you make that a habit, it'll become much more refreshing to do this stuff. Third, leverage the habits or routines that you have. One way to do that is what we call habit stacking. Habit stacking is when you have a habit already and you add one more habit to that. So for example, you probably do a lot of habit stacking in the morning when you're getting ready for your day. You take a shower, you brush your teeth, you do your hair, you shave, makeup, whatever. All those steps are part of a particular routine. You can go through them without thinking about them. It's very easy to add one more habit to habits that you already have. Maybe you have a habit to make a few calls a day. Maybe you could stack right onto that, updating your CRM immediately rather than getting to it later. Some of the mistakes that we make are when we, let's say, make a bunch of calls and then we check our email feed or something and we think we missed something because we've been calling for the last hour. And then we say, we'll get to the CRM later. We never get around to it. So habit stacking is one way for you to leverage the routines that are already there. It doesn't require any brain effort to do that, which is why it's efficient for you. Fourth one here. Here's one. Do only what you enjoy. The stuff that's difficult for you, that's hard for you to stick with, delegate it. Give it to somebody else on your team. Find a virtual assistant. There's so many options out there. Find somebody else here in the CSC community or the Compass community who may know somebody who can help you with that particular task and get rid of it. There's one model that some people use, which is do, delegate, or ditch it. Either do it yourself, delegate it to somebody else, or let it go. And that's one way to think about, what parts of your business you ought to be working on and matter to you and your business's success. Second group of 4 here. Keep your goal or reward front and center. When you remember what it is you're working for in the moment, it becomes a whole lot easier to get yourself to do what it is you want to do. For example, this is a waterfall. It's in the Grand Canyon. It's called Havasupai Falls. When I saw a picture of this for the first time a few years ago, I thought that was so amazing because I've been to the Grand Canyon and it's so dry and it's so desert-like and it's just a bunch of rocks everywhere and all that. And to think that there's a waterfall in the midst of all that seemed kind of like an oasis to me. And I said, I'm going to go there. So that's one of the things that I have on my bucket list. And when I'm kind of in the drudgery of doing all the administrative stuff, which I don't like to do, sometimes I just pull it out. It's right in my desk. I pull it out, take a look at it for a minute, take like a mini vacation in my mind. And that's all I need to give myself a little kick to keep going. Sometimes all you need is that little kick. Next one, we talked about this a few weeks ago. Don't be afraid to chunk it down. Sometimes you choose something that's really too big and you choose it in your enthusiasm and passion to make the business success, but it may turn out to just be too big for you. Maybe it isn't 5 calls a day. Maybe it's 3. Or maybe it isn't following up with every client that you've done something with in the next 3 days. Maybe it's the next 5 days. Maybe it's the next 2 weeks. Chunk it down in a way that takes it from impossible to possible, because achieving something is better than achieving nothing. It's the same thing with the all or nothing attitude that Ali was talking about before. You can help the business by doing something, even if you don't end up doing everything. Third, use an accountability partner. We talk about that a lot here. If you're not using an accountability partner for something in your business, you're probably missing an opportunity and you're leaving money on the table. Think about what it is you need some help to get done here and think about an accountability partner. We can help you do that. You go on to Mighty Networks. We've got folks who can help you be accountable for whatever it is you need to be accountable for. And sometimes we need the help because, hey, we're stuck, we're difficult, we're drowning. It's difficult, no doubt about it. And finally, Sometimes all it takes is to initiate the first step. Have you ever had this where you know you need to do something and you're just holding off doing it, and you just keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off and putting it off? But then when you find if you just get going on it, sometimes you go further than you thought. I get that when I develop a new program sometimes. I think, okay, a little bit like Allie does. I think, okay, I want to be clear about what am I going to talk about first, and then second, and then third, and then fourth, and I want to get through the whole thing, and so I keep putting it off. But I may be clear that there's one or two pieces in there already, and so I should just put those one or two pieces down for myself and put them where I think they might be. And what I find when I start to do that is the rest of it just starts to flow. So sometimes taking that first step to just initiate something stops the procrastination. So let me pull this down and see which one of these resonates for you. Luciana, I'm not going to send you the sample Excel sheet, but you can look. I'll find out which session that was, and I will email you. And if anybody else wants it, we'll make sure we make a note somehow for folks who want it. But it was a session I did, I don't know, a month or two ago. It was on a Thursday, of course, and we were talking about. You know what? I'll have to get the title for you, and we'll figure out a way to get that information back. Let me just make a note. All right, got it. Okay, so let me ask you, which one of these 8 things is something that you perhaps might be able to leverage, or something that you've never thought of before, or something that you might want to apply? Thank you, Jane, I see that. Let's hear from a couple of you. What is it that you think you could apply at this point that might help you over the barrier or the hump that's getting in your way? Habit stacking, got it. Thank you, Marlena. Remember, habit stacking is easy because the habit's already in place. You're just adding a little bit, like 1 or 2% more effort to add the thing on. And if you choose the right set of habits to stack it with, it becomes second nature. You know, for example, let's say that your habit was to get up, take a shower, do your hair, brush your teeth, and then go eat breakfast, and then come back and do your makeup. Well, that might be perfectly appropriate for you. On the other hand, it might make sense to just do the makeup while you're in front of the mirror anyway, or shave, or whatever it is. And so it's important to make sure that you're attaching the habit to the right other habits. And so it might be a no-brainer to do something like that in your morning bathroom routine anyway, because you're already there. But for something that's in your business, it needs to be attached to the right other habit. If you do that, it can be really effective. Time blocking on your calendar. So, you know, there's 2 steps to the time blocking. One is actually putting it down, and the second is sticking with it, right? And so I always say, if it's not in your calendar, you're not committed to it. And so whatever it is you say you're going to do doesn't really matter. It's what you do that matters. And so if you don't put time in your calendar to do things that you are important and find ways to give yourself the time to do that, you're never going to get to it. The challenge that we have is that there's 85 different things that need to be done, and we only have time for 45. And so we have to make choices. But that doesn't mean we have to give up on the other 35 that we're missing. It's just we need to find another way to run our business so that those things get done too. So the first step is doing the blocking at first, in the first place, to say, I need this much time to do this particular task. And this is so important that I need to do it. Nobody else can do it, whatever that is. You're very clear how important this is. You're making an accurate assessment of what amount of time you need. That's the first part, getting it into the calendar. Sometimes we put the wrong amount of time in there, right? We think we can do it in 30 minutes, but we really need 60. And that becomes a problem, right? So it's important for us to be realistic and honest about how much time is required for that task. And maybe it is that we need to chunk it down. Maybe we would like to make 10 calls a day, but it really isn't realistic given everything else that's going on right now. Maybe it is 5, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 1. Maybe it's sending 1 note to 1 past client, as Corey was talking about before. Maybe it's not getting them all done right away. Maybe it's just 1 this week and 1 next week. And if that's what is reasonable for you, that's fine. Second part about time blocking is actually sticking with it. And this is where most people fail. A lot of people do build time into their calendar to do things. But then what they end up doing is they choose to spend time on something else rather than that. And this is really a kind of a telling moment for you as the leader of your business. When you choose to do A, you have to calculate the opportunity cost of not doing B. It's very easy to say, I have this fire I have to put out right now, and that happens every single day, so I never get around to, let's say, filling my funnel or something like that. But you have to recognize you're making a choice to do that. And this is a really hard thing to shift. Often what it takes is much more cooperation from others so that you can do what you need to do. Maybe it is asking someone on your team to take over another task. Maybe it is asking everyone on your team never, ever, ever to call you unless they're on fire from 8:30 to 9 every morning, right? It's a matter of finding a particular framework for that thing to happen so that you choose it. Another way to do it is to make sure that you give yourself a reward every time you do that, right? That gets back to habits. We did a program a few weeks ago on habits. You may remember I mentioned this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. One of the things that's in a lot of the books on habits is this idea of a feedback loop or a reward loop. That is, when you do what it is you said you were going to do, you reward yourself with whatever it is, a cup of coffee or a trip to the gym, or go to the store and buy some food you like to eat, or lunch, or whatever it is, right? The breakdown almost always is what you're doing that ends up usurping the time that you said you're dedicating to something else. David Saba says, I try to attack my most important task first thing in the morning. In my experience, those early wins tend to stack more easily. That's quite true. For many people, for some people, I mean, this is where it's really different. You have to know yourself. For some people, it's get the most important thing done in the morning first. For some people, it's get the easiest, shortest things done in the morning first, because then you create some traction. You got this done, you got that done, you got that done, you're feeling pretty good, right? You need to think about what it is that works best for you and try a couple different things. Let's hear from one or two more folks. What's one thing that you think you need to focus on a little bit more to do this better?
So, David, I don't know if
Go
you
ahead,
can
Renee.
hear me. Yes, hi.
Yep.
So I find actually having an accountability partner very helpful, because I also try to time block. I never showed up to my own time blocking, and I didn't really stick with my plans. But once I have that time block with somebody as my accountability partner, even though there was a time when my partner did not show up, I was still there because I showed up to that appointment, to that calendar. So I was still, sitting there, and doing the CRM that I would normally, would not do. So that is something that I would like to continue. And now I have 3 accountability partner time blocks, and I would like to continue to expand on that if anyone is interested in, having a partner working on CRM or asking questions and stuff like that.
Thank you, Renee. This is a good example where an accountability partner can make a big difference. If they're going to call you every day and, at a certain time, and that's the time that you've set to do whatever that task is, or even just to check on you because you're doing a task on your own, sometimes that's enough to get you over the hump. But you have to make clear that this is the choice that you're making, right? It's not that my life is too busy and my life is crazy. It's I choose not to focus on this right now because I think something else is more important and valuable to me. You see, you folks show up here every single morning at 9:30. You're able to do that. You're blocking this time and you're showing up, and I see you every Thursday and I see you on the other days too. So what that tells me is you can do it when you're sufficiently motivated. And so if you're not doing it somewhere else in your life or your business, it's not about the circumstances of your life or your business. It's about the choice you're making at that moment in time, right? You have to own the fact that you're choosing to focus on A, which means you're not focusing on B, and you're striving for the opportunity that comes from focusing on topic A, but you're also carrying the opportunity cost of not focusing on B, right? You've made a choice for your business, and obviously that's going to affect your success over time. So I wonder if this is a topic that you guys would like to kind of go further into at some point. We're thinking of, or at least I'm thinking of, talking with Chirag about doing a couple of programs that might require a little more time and a little more depth than we have time for in the morning sessions, like a 4-session program or a 6-session program. If this is a topic that you think would be useful to you and you might want to sign up for a separate focused program on, just put it in the chat box or send an email to me or Deborah or Chirag about it. We're thinking about ways we can provide more value going forward. And obviously there's always a limitation to 30-minute calls, right? And the advantage is you can get back to work and do things, but some of these topics require more stuff. And then we can't always run the live programs like we did, last week. So if there's a topic like this that you think would have value for you that you'd like to go a little deeper into, just let us know. Okay, everybody, it's 10 o'clock. Get out there and make the contribution that only you can make to the world. And I'll see you all gladly next week. Have a great day.